Welcome to Books and Beyond with That Guy Jay. I am That Guy Jay, and I'm joined tonight by Anny Wilkes, one of my mutuals from BookTok. Thank you for being my first ever guest. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm incredibly honored, first and foremost, but it's good to be with you and thank you for the opportunity.
Real quick, I think I'm going to start every podcast with this. It seems like an easy book talk question. What's your current read?
My current read, so I just finished a book today, which was Camp 14, a nonfiction book about life in North Korea. But after that, it was really heavy. And so now I'm reading Dread Nation, which is actually about zombies, keeping it light.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, there you go. Little
Zombies
palate
in the
cleanser.
Civil War. Yeah, exactly.
Now, what's your reading journey look like? Are you a lifetime reader? Have you always been a reader or
It's funny. When I was going through school, elementary school and middle school, my mom would always sign up for these summer skills programs. So after the end of the school year, we would get the summer skills box, and I would always dread it because it had like three books, a bunch of worksheets, and I had to do it throughout the summer to stay sharp. So I have to be honest when I say I did not like to read, I dreaded it. Every time I got a book, I tried to just skim through it enough, to be able to say I read it. But honestly, until I read The Catcher in the Rye in high school, that's when I turned the corner on reading. And after that, I read I believe it was The Shining. And from then on, I was hooked. I was an everyday reader, read as much as I can, but it was quite the contrast to growing up when I just couldn't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a similar story, but I was a little bit even later than high school. Um, I I didn't read a single book in high school, and it's like I skimmed, and Spark Notes were a thing in the
Yep.
90s,
Yep.
and like I was so bad that in my early 20s, I ran into my English teacher just out in the world, and I was like, Mr. Norton, I gotta apologize. He's like, first of all, you can call me Rob. You're a grown up now. But he's like, for what? And I was like, I know that I was such a menace in your class. Like, I swore I would never be a reader. I swore that I would never write. And I was like, I currently write for, like an MMA website and I read books daily. And he was like, this is the best news ever. But I was like, he knew I wasn't reading the books, but I could pass the quizzes. So he was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's funny. Spark Notes. I remember that.
And then actually what got me was I had some downtime before I went to boot camp when I was around 20 and everybody was talking about the Da Vinci Code.
Mm.
And I was like, all right, this is everywhere. It was like it had been out for like 8 or 10 months. I was like, I gotta find out what it is. And looking back, it's like it's not the best book ever, but it is very digestible and exciting. And I was like, all right, I guess books aren't so bad. Let me try
Right.
some other stuff.
That's funny. Yeah, it's quite, once you're in the zone, it's quite addicting, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. Now, has your reading taste changed along the way, or have you always been like you said you read The Shining, so has horror always kind of been your thing?
I've always enjoyed horror. When I was 6 years old in, the 90s, we kind of parented ourselves.
Yeah.
I I watched The Exorcist, and honestly, at that time I was just like, wow, that's cool. Her head spun around. But it really kind of developed the taste that I have in music, in art, and also in books. But I love all genres. I'm what I like to call a promiscuous reader because I will read nonfiction, I'll read, literary fiction, horror, thrillers, fantasy. I'll dabble anywhere. But I would say that if you were to ask my favorite genre, I would say horror, yes. Literary horror, especially.
Yeah, I used to consider myself just kind of like primarily a sci-fi and a little bit of a fantasy guy. And then I got on Book Talk 2 years ago and I spent a year and a half just watching, and that expanded my reading a little bit. And then joining the community and posting is like now I've read a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's great. This community, I think, kind of challenges us to go beyond our norms and go beyond things that we know and challenge ourselves. And I'll be grateful for that forever because the books that I read nowadays, since being on Book Talk, are probably books I would have never even picked up if I was just walking through the bookstore.
Yeah, same. And I've gotten some fantastic nonfiction recs because nonfiction was always something I wanted to read, but there's so many, and I
Mm-hmm.
never like knew where to go. But there's some great nonfiction accounts, and then just some people in general that have great recs with nonfiction. I try to read one a month, but I'm struggling at the end of the year with that. But I've truly expanded in all categories my reading this year. 2024 has been wild for me.
That's amazing.
Now, outside of book talk, you mentioned music. What are some other things that you're passionate about that get you real excited?
I think the arts in general get me really excited. I've written poetry, shoot, for 25 years probably. It's always been an outlet for me. It's always been a way to get my feelings on paper, and you know, once I'm able to get them out, then I can deal with them. I've always kind of been like an empath, and so I deal with a lot of emotions, and that's one avenue that I've used. But I also paint, usually acrylic, but I've done mixed mediums, spray paint, watercolor, just anything. I always say, like, anything that's in me that I need to get out, I either need to write it or paint it. That's the best way for me to get those things out there. And so those are two things that I enjoy. And I also, I'm pretty into heavy metal as well, but I don't play any instruments. I just air drum.
Nice.
Yeah.
My daughter's a lot like that. She's very artistic and she surpassed me in her metal taste. She likes really heavy stuff.
Does she?
Yeah.
That's great. She's keeping it going. Generational. I love it.
Yeah, she sends me like joke songs where anytime it's heavy enough to kind of sound like a pig.
Yeah.
She's like, "This is my taste in music."
Well done. Number one
Yeah.
dad. I love that.
She's very into especially drawing. Every now and then she'll ask for a canvas when she's motivated to paint. And I've always said I don't have an artistic bone in my body, and I always like I carried that over into not thinking I was creative. But this year has been kind of an awakening for me in that sense, is like realizing that I think my view of creativity my whole life was wrong, because like I thought if you couldn't draw or paint, then you weren't artistic or creative. But it's so much more than that. Like
Oh
I've
yeah.
really, especially with content creation, I like I think I like the editing almost as much as the filming.
Do you?
Yeah, and it's like I like the nitty gritty parts of it. And I've like this year has been a year of trying to pick up different habits and hobbies and expand what I knew, because creativity is it's so much more than I originally thought.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, and I've always been the kind of person who wears their emotions on their sleeve. And I the way that I've always expressed myself is kind of what makes me who I am. I have all these tattoos and my own style, and for me that's how I express my creativity. But back to an earlier point, when we're talking about coming to realizations and kind of expanding our world, I will say this year in 2024, I think, from it sounds like we're both kind of taking a journey and growing and becoming better people. I think we're probably this around the same age. So doing this now is an incredible feeling. And I just wish that we had book talk when we were in our 20s.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like I also spent my late 30s being like I'm too old to try new things.
Right.
And it's so much wasted time there. But the book talk community has really changed my view of community in general. It's such an amazing space. I'm happy to be part of it. I think we've both ended up on a pretty cool corner of the internet.
Absolutely. When I scrolled past your page the very first time, I saw your long hair and your beard, and I was like, that guy's legit. Follow.
That brings me to something that I wanted to ask about, and what motivates you to be like so giving within this community, because I've been lucky enough to be book ferried by you, and I know that I think you do it weekly still,
I
where you
do.
send them out to people. Where does that come from for you?
So for me, if I wish that when I was younger that I had been exposed to more, my parents didn't really read that much. My dad was working all the time. And I just wish that I had more exposure to different kinds of books. So if I go through somebody's wish list, like you said, I do it once a week. I'll just go through wish lists randomly on my followers. And if I see a book that I loved or that I connect with, which I usually do, then I want them to have that book because it made such an impact on me. I want them to have that feeling. But also, I just like, I like being kind. I like making people happy and smile and laugh if I can.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've only book faired a few times, but I do always try and look for something that connects to me in some way, not just necessarily what I think they'll want, but like a little bit selfishly, it's like I want to love it too. So,
Yeah,
but it is I like buying books, but I think I like giving books just as much.
I do
I've
too.
this year I've just like really grown a whole new appreciation for reading and books. And it's like I thought I read a lot before. And then Book Talk is like it's not a competition, but it's like when you get you like 10 fantastic suggestions every day, it's like you just want to get through them to keep going with it.
Right. I know. It's sometimes if I feel like I'm heading into an existential crisis, I'll think about all the books that I want to read, and then I'll think about how short life is. And that, man, that really gets me there.
Yeah, I end up on that path every now and then too. I'm like doing the math. It's like if I work hard, I can read 100 books a year, and however many years left, it's like that's
Right.
not nearly as many as my TBR is.
And that's why I DNF books, because I didn't used to. I used to say, you're in it, finish it. But these days, I adopted the approach of if I'm not enjoying it, I'm going to set it down because there's a thousand other things that I probably would, enjoy or get something from. So,
I think that's something I need to work on because I have the mindset of like if I start it, I have to finish it. Like I think I have a little bit of perfectionism in me where I'm like my brain doesn't want to let go until it's done. It's like, nope, you didn't complete that. But I am working on it because there's been a couple this year where I probably could have stopped.
yeah, it took me a while to get, here because I've always been taught finish what you start.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that was a big part of growing up in the 90s.
But I'm a rebel. Here I am, 42 years old. I'm rebelling.
I'm with you there. It's something I think that might be a goal for 2025 is to finish series and to DNF a book.
Yes.
Because
Perfect.
I'm not sure that I can name a single book that I've intentionally DNF'd. Like there's some where I just floated away because, life got in the way.
Hmm.
But I don't think I've ever been like, nope, I'm gonna stop this one.
It's a liberating experience. I look forward to you doing that.
And I imagine it is, and I think it's also a skill, but I also do think it's such a better use of time because there's been some books that took me 10 days to get through that were only a few hundred pages.
Hmm.
And it's just like a chapter a day isn't really, it's not making progress.
No.
Not
And
at the rate that I normally do.
now that we're out of this set an academic setting where it's being forced upon us, I feel like, I'm going to set my own course here. And if I don't like what I'm reading, or if I'm not getting anything out of it, then I'm just going to set it down. And I've only started doing that in the past year, to be honest with you.
I think that's a good approach. I need to work on that.
Yeah.
And that's one of my goals with this podcast is continuing my own self growth. So even picking up tips like that is what I'm hoping to do and learn from this community because I really do think Book Talk is a special place.
I really do too. I've never seen such generous, caring, kind people who reach out, not even just in videos, but will send me a DM and say, "How are you doing today?" Or, "I know you had that test. Did you pass?" It's just an incredible environment, and the internet is so inherently unkind that
Yeah,
it's a gem, really, to find these folks.
it's like comment sections on most social media platforms are like a dumpster fire at best. And it's like most Book Talk videos there's always an exception to the rule, but like 99% of it is just super supportive. Even if people have differing opinions on genres, like everybody is just so happy to be there. I don't know if it's reading in particular, the type of people it draws, or it's just, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, and I think for me, in my life and my friends, I'm really the only person who reads this much. And so Book Talk provides for me an outlet and people to talk to about these books. And my passion is so great. And I think maybe other people are experiencing the same thing where they can't talk about books with their friends because let's face it, we read a lot. I
Yeah.
don't think the average person reads as much as we do.
No, and I think a lot of people outside of the book community don't even recognize reading as a hobby.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why I think it took me a lot of years to recognize that this is a legitimate hobby and passion.
It really is. I mean, it's as expensive as a hobby, that's for sure.
Absolutely. But being able to find like-minded people, because there's no one in my real life that reads as much as me either, not even close.
Yeah, I think that's the case for most people, which is why it makes it so special that we're all over the country and the world, but it feels like, we're just so close. We built these connections.
Yeah, like I think, there's plenty of people that I think are building actual real friendships and it's very cool to see and it's sometimes humbling just to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Now, in terms of 2024, how has your reading goal been? Do you have a reading goal? Are you the type to set one?
So I am not. I've never set a reading goal, and I probably never will set a reading goal because for me that just puts undue stress. And because I don't read in an academic setting, I read basically for reasons, which is to learn, to escape, and to enjoy. Like that's how I spend my time. It's enjoyable. So I don't really see a reason to set a goal. I mean, I've read I tallied it up right before this. I read 86 books this year, but I'm trying not to get the itch to make it to 100 because I the world is stressful enough. My job is stressful. I don't need to put pressure on myself. You know what I mean?
I think I'm at 79 books and the itch is very strong for me.
Yeah.
But I did set a goal, but I set it at 52
Oh
because
wow.
I knew I would hit that based on the last couple years of reading. I was like a book a week is very reasonable and that way I still feel like I accomplished something. So I kind of put myself in a no lose situation.
Well, that's good. Yeah. If we do it that way, that makes sense. But I just in life, I set myself like I have a 5 year plan, sure, but I just with books, it's my hobby. It's casual. There's no rules, baby.
Yeah, no, I like that too. That's why I just wanted to get the confetti on Goodreads
I love that.
because I think I hit my goal over the summer. So it's like it was a while ago. It was not super hard to do.
Yeah. The problem I have with reading goals is like right now I'm at 86. If I had a goal of 100, I would find myself seeking out the smallest books with, 100 pages, short stories. And in addition to reading, Dread Nation, I've also got Swan Song going at the same time, which is a huge book.
Yeah, I've got that on my shelf. That's a chunky one.
Oh, so I feel like if I set a goal, I'm probably going to be missing out on some things that I would really enjoy. So I don't want to do that either.
Yeah, I think I had one month where I didn't read a single book that was under 600 pages.
Wow.
So it's like, what is a book count anyways? Because like The Way of Kings is equivalent to like three normal books
Yeah,
or
truly.
average, whatever. So it's like, I don't know, page count might be a better way, but still it's getting in the weeds there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just read, whatever tickles my fancy whenever it tickles it, just go with the flow.
Yeah, that's what I try to do as well. Now, are you an audiobook listener or Kindle or are you just physical books?
I have never tried an audiobook. Well, I'll take that back. I tried I think about half an hour one time and I had the book with me because this was based on your recommendation about an immersive read.
Yeah, that's my
Because I've
go-to now.
struggled. I've struggled with even with listening to podcasts, I zone out immediately. And so the same with audiobooks, but I tried to actually have Project Hail Mary in my hand, listening, reading, going along. Maybe it takes practice, maybe it's an acquired taste. I just love the book in my hand. I don't have a Kindle. I'm just a book in hand type gal.
Yeah, I prefer a physical book too, and controversial. I prefer paperbacks.
Do you?
Even more controversial, I like mass markets.
Oh, I like paperbacks, but mass markets for me are tough. I
They,
like the hand feel. It's an experience.
I can fit them in my pocket, so.
Oh, I guess that works. Okay. Here I am hauling around Swan Song in like a wheelbarrow.
But I do have a Kindle, and I have to say, at night before bed, it is fantastic because you can read in the dark with just a very light backlight on it.
Yeah.
And immersive reading with audiobooks has been my go-to recently because there's just some days where I can't focus on either or, but if you shove both at me, like I can't ignore it. So
Yeah.
I have it in front of me and I'm hearing it.
I'm
That's
going to
been,
keep trying.
yeah, if you can, I mean, if you have the right mind space for it, but if physical books are just working for you, there's no need to change.
Yeah. I love them. And, I was thinking about audiobooks today. And one thing that I've always heard in school is, or when I was growing up, don't make fun of the kids who are pronouncing words incorrectly because it means that they read them, they're reading. And I was thinking about that randomly today and how that would relate to audiobooks and just how much everything has changed over the years. But yeah, it's an incredible to know that so many people can read with eyes and ears nowadays. I love it.
Yeah, it's so much more accessible.
Yeah.
I saw a comedian recently that had a bit about audiobooks and being a fantasy reader myself, he had a little bit at the end where he's like, my friends make fun of me, but he's like, at least I know I'm pronouncing the characters' names correctly. And it's like, that's
Exactly.
with fantasy, that's super valid.
Yeah, I've dabbled in fantasy. Tress of the Emerald Sea is my favorite cozy book, but I've also, read others, but yeah, the names in those are just insanely long.
Yeah. Tress was a really good one. I had a good time with that one. It's very different than other Sanderson books. It's cozy is the right word. It's very whimsical.
Yeah, I just got Mistborn. So I guess I'm going into the Cosmere. I guess
It's
it's what it's
happening.
called. Yeah. I was having FOMO. I'm
Yeah,
not I'm not historically like a fantasy gal, but you know, everyone else is doing it.
everybody seems to end up reading Sanderson at some point.
Yeah.
Have you read what A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers?
I have not, but I've heard amazing things.
That's my go-to at least once a year cozy read. It is
Is it?
just especially like if you're ever having like an existential crisis, it is essentially about a monk in a world where all of your needs are handled, so you don't have to do anything. And they end up feeling lost, so they decide to become a tea monk and travel around the moon that they live on. And it's all about their self-discovery and trying to figure out where their place in this world is.
That's perfect. Yeah, I definitely that's high up on my list. I would love to read that soon.
The second one's even better, but I recommend that to most people because it's like I someone described it as a warm cup of tea. That's what it feels like reading it, and it's the most accurate description. And it does that more than any other book has ever done that.
I know that feeling. I've been chasing Tress of the Emerald Sea vibes since I shut that final page. So I'm excited to check this one out because it sounds like I might revisit those feelings.
It's a novella too, so it goes real quick. I think it's only about 150 pages.
Oh, okay, perfect. Perfect.
Now, what's your approach to content? Do you have a set posting time? I like to hear everyone's take on this because I get geeky about the numbers.
uh so I've been on TikTok since July of 2022. I only started making BookTok content within the past 6 months. So in terms of the book type stuff, I very much approach it like I was making my other content, which I will turn the camera on whenever I feel moved. I've tried, like, if I'm going out of town, I'll pre record and, upload from my drafts while I'm gone. But if I'm here, I just record them when the mood strikes. And maybe I'll record two or three if I'm really in a creative space, or maybe I'll just create one. But I try to post 2 videos every day, at least.
Yeah, I've been really bad about the drafts. One time I had 3 days in a row covered, and I was like, "Oh, this is different. I see why some people do this."
Yeah.
I try to post in the afternoon every day, and I'm usually like ADHD mode kicks in around 1 o'clock, and I'm like, "All right, got to come up with an idea now." I kind of like working under the pressure.
Do you?
Yeah, I think I should get away from that, but it seems to be working for the most part. So I
That's
like
good.
I like to film, edit, and then hit post. Like I like it to be the time to post right when I'm done.
I do too. Especially if I think I'm coming up with something really cute or funny, and I'm like, well, I just posted one. Oh, this is good. I'm gonna post it anyways. But yeah, I don't have any pressure about it. I just do it because I love it. And if I'm in a creative mood, then I take advantage by making 3 or 4 videos. But if I'm not in the mood to do it, I don't do it because I feel like people can tell, you
Yeah,
know.
and then I don't ever want my hobby to feel like a job.
No, no, no. Not unless I'm getting paid.
I
No.
don't I don't put that kind of pressure on it, but like just kind of like the creative pressure of like, oh, let's get this done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you have great videos and yours are you I can tell that you enjoy editing. I'm sure
Yeah.
if you've seen some of mine, it's my least favorite part of the process.
Yeah, I used to be into photography, which is crazy that I used to think that that wasn't an artistic thing, but that was just my brain. But I think I liked the editing portion of photography as much as the actual picture taking.
That's creativity too.
Yeah, 'cause I took 2 years of photography in high school where we actually got to use a black room and everything, and it's like that was way cooler than taking the pictures. I was like, let's just go in there and do that part.
Yeah, I've seen, when I watch movies, I'm always like, that seems so cool.
Yeah, I think back and I'm like, I don't remember like how to do it at all, but like I did it. I still have some, black and white 8x10s that I developed myself. They're not great, but I was 15. So.
Very cool. I like that.
And I don't want to take too much of your time, so we can start wrapping it up here. But is there anything else that you would want to talk about before we go?
I will just put this out there because I read a book recently that changed my entire outlook on life. And up until that point, Stephen King's 11/22/63 had been my favorite book ever. But I experienced in the month of October something unlike I've ever experienced, which was reading Kindle by Octavia E. Butler. Kindred, I'm sorry, I say Kindle every time. Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. And so I would just encourage everyone out there, if you have not read that book, please do.
Yeah, I have the special edition up above me. When anyone asks, that's my favorite book.
I love it.
It's like I don't know if I can say for sure because I'll give you a top three usually, but if I had to pick, it's that one.
Fantastic book.
Yeah, 11/22/63 is up there for me as well. That was a surprise for me this year.
I love that book. That was great. See, we have similar tastes. That's what I'm finding all along. We all find each other. We, on some level, have, interests the same.
And do you just have a TikTok? Do you have a Bookstagram or a YouTube or anything else that you want to plug while you're here?
Well, I just set up a YouTube, and because I'm afraid we may lose TikTok, but
Yeah.
it's Annie Wilkes, but Anny. If you put Annie, you're going to get a whole lot of Kathy Bates showing up
Oh.
for misery.
All right. Yep.
Yeah, so hopefully we can keep TikTok because that's my preferred place.
Yeah, mine as well. That's part of why I started this too, though, is I'd like to keep community going in some way if the bad day comes.
Yeah, and I'm also on Blue Sky, which a lot of people are moving over to. Same username, Annie Wilkes. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out.
I've been meaning to download that because I haven't touched the other one in years because it's terrible.
I'm holding out for TikTok because that's where I'm used to it. I'm comfortable. We have such great friends. I would hate for it to break up.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, well, thank you again so much for joining me on the inaugural episode of Books and Beyond with that guy Jay.
Jay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I wish you luck on the rest of your journey.
All right, have a great night.
You too.